channel today. Today's video is going to be a video on breastfeeding tips and must-haves that I have used throughout my breastfeeding journey with Mackenzie and that I plan on using with baby number 2 coming in a few weeks. So hopefully this video is helpful if you are new to breastfeeding or if you're having a difficult time with breastfeeding. Maybe some of these ideas can help you out a little bit. If you're new to my channel, I do motherhood and pregnancy related topics. I would love for you to subscribe and also hit that notification bell so that you know whenever I post a new video. Currently, I'm doing a video a day in the month of May leading up to Mother's Day series. So it is Mother's Day, so this is the last video of that series. When I'm not doing that series, I do new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. Right now I have hyperemesis with my pregnancy, so I do one pregnancy update video a week and then another video on some kind of related mommy topic or just a day in the life kind of video. So I would love for you to subscribe. Please give the video a thumbs up if you like this content. I do want to say a few things before I jump into the tips and must-haves that I have. I do believe that fed is best. There's nothing wrong with giving your baby formula. I'm not against it at all. I am pro breastfeeding and bringing awareness to breastfeeding because it's still kind of a touchy subject. I do support breastfeeding, but I also know that you have to do what's right for you and your body and your family. So if formula is the right way for your family to go, I have nothing against that. However you need to take care of your babies is perfectly fine. And there are lots of women that really want to breastfeed, but they aren't able to. They don't have enough milk supply, or they have a really difficult time with the baby latching correctly. There's so many different things that can happen to prevent a successful breastfeeding journey. And some of those things you can work on and have control over, and some of them you really can't. So I completely understand the women that do try and they're not able to. Don't be hard on yourself. It is much harder than I thought it would be. So I just wanted to throw that in there. I'm not against formula. With my daughter, Mackenzie, I did breastfeed her for 14 months before we started adding in any kind of formula or whole milk or anything like that. I breastfed her and then she had bottles if she was away from me. A big reason that I stopped breastfeeding was because I was trying to get pregnant and I started weaning her because I know that it can be harder to get pregnant whenever you're breastfeeding. And then I ended up getting pregnant and we had started supplementing with whole milk. So she was still nursing off and on, mainly before sleeping or for comfort, for the first couple of months of my pregnancy. And then with my hyperemesis, I just felt too sick to let her continue to do that. And I also didn't want her, I was never planning on breastfeeding her with a newborn also. I know some moms will breastfeed their toddler and their newborn at the same time. I don't feel like I didn't feel like I was up for that. So I definitely wanted to wean her off before baby number 2 comes so that she isn't too jealous or upset about it. Like I said, breastfeeding for me was much harder than I thought it would be. I don't know anybody that is close to me that has breastfed. I just kind of thought that it would be really natural and I didn't expect to be in so much pain. For me, right after I had the baby, I did have to go in for an emergency surgery procedure. So after all that was the first time that I got to breastfeed her and nurse her. That night I don't remember it hurting. I don't remember being in pain. I remember feeling like, oh, this is kind of weird feeling. But the next day my nipples were bleeding, really chafed and just in a lot of pain. So they kept sending the lactation consultant in to make sure that she was latching correctly and that I was doing a good position. And they said, everything's fine. You're just having a lot of irritation. Your body has to get used to breastfeeding. They tried to be helpful, but I didn't feel like the lactation people were super helpful for me. I don't know how they could have been any more helpful, honestly, but I didn't feel better after them coming and talking to me about it. So Justin was super supportive during this. He was trying to help me figure out how to get a better position. He would try to angle her mouth correctly. So once it started hurting, I gave myself a goal and kind of a time frame. I told Justin and myself that if I wasn't feeling better, if it was still this painful, in like 10 to 14 days that we were going to have to do formula, or I was going to pump and give her bottles because I was in a lot of pain. Justin felt bad for me, and he was to the point where he was like, you just need to pump because I don't want to see you in so much pain. I don't remember really complaining about it, but whenever he would hand me Mackenzie and I would get ready for her to latch on, I would kind of like tense up and like prepare for it. Because really, when she first latched was the worst part. 10 to 30 seconds, and then there wasn't really any more pain after that. But that first initial, when she latched, I would just like get really tense. I was definitely in tears multiple times. I continued to breastfeed, and around day 8, I started feeling better. My nipples stopped bleeding. It became much more comfortable. I don't know if my body just got used to it, or if Mackenzie and I got more on the same page and she got better with her latch, or what happened. But I was so thankful around day 8 to feel better. It was still uncomfortable at some points, but it became where it wasn't uncomfortable at all. So that being said, just know that the first couple weeks can be really painful. Try to hang in there. But if you can't, there's no shame in that. Don't feel mom guilt. I know it's hard not to. If you want the baby to get the breast milk and like all the colostrum and everything, you can try pumping for a couple months or at least a couple weeks and then giving bottles. If that's also an issue for you, just find a good formula that you and your pediatrician are comfortable with and just do that. Baby will be okay. But my first tip is to stick with it for a little while. Give it a little bit of time, because like I said, I was off and on like crying because it was hurting so bad. But by day 8, it wasn't a big deal anymore. It didn't hurt me anymore, and I'm so glad that I stuck with it. There's so many benefits from breast milk. The colostrum has so many antibodies, and it helps support the immune system. There's just so much research showing how well breast milk helps with the immune system and your child's development. So if you can just try to stick with it, just give it, like I said, a week or 2, and if it's still unbearable, then try something else. And if it's just too much for you after a couple of days, people's pain tolerance is different, people's experiences are different, so there's no shame in having to go a different route. Try to hang in there. Just try to know that it is going to probably hurt and be uncomfortable for the first couple weeks, because I didn't have that expectation of it being painful. My second tip would be to also set like realistic goals on how long you want to breastfeed, because there were days whenever I was just exhausted and I didn't really feel like doing it anymore, but I really stuck to my goal. So my first goal with Mackenzie was to breastfeed until I went back to work, which was 3 months. After about 2.5 months, I decided I really wanted to continue breastfeeding her and figure out the pumping at work situation, and I'd already gotten a pretty good freezer supply at that point of breast milk for her to drink while I was at work. So I extended it to 6 months. When we got to about 5 months, I decided I wanted to try to breastfeed for a year. Research shows and our pediatrician recommended at least doing a year. That was my next goal, was a year. So I kept increasing my goal dates, but having that goal helped me on the hard days keep in mind, this isn't going to be forever. I'm doing what I feel is best for my baby. I think having goals is a good idea. Another thing I wanted to throw in there is that some women, when they breastfeed, have anxiety. Like I said, I don't know anybody really that's breastfed, and my doctor didn't really ever talk to me about breastfeeding. The pediatrician talked to us a little bit about it. He mainly just asked like how often was I breastfeeding and how long does she nurse, that kind of stuff. Nobody really, even the lactation consultants didn't really touch on this. So whenever I was nursing Mackenzie, I noticed that I was kind of feeling high anxiety. In the past, I have suffered from some depression and anxiety. So I was kind of feeling that way. I kind of thought that it was maybe like a little bit of postpartum depression. It's super exciting to have a new baby, but it can also be like a little bit lonely sometimes, especially whenever you're up in the middle of the night and you're breastfeeding and you're by yourself. All good things, but it's also normal to feel that way. Talk to your spouse, talk to your family, talk to your friends about how you're feeling. But I noticed that it was a little bit more than just postpartum depression, anxiety type stuff. It was every time that I would have my milk let down, whether I was pumping or whenever she was nursing, I would start feeling really anxious, and I didn't know why. And I guess some women experience that. It's not super common, but just know if you are experiencing that it does happen to other people. I thought I was just like losing my mind, and then I Googled it, and of course you trust everything off of the internet, but I Googled it and it's a frequently asked question, so it wasn't just me. With me, it kind of just passed. So it made me feel better to know that I wasn't alone in that other people do experience it. Dysphoric milk ejection reflux, or DMER. For most women, dopamine levels decrease for milk production, but for some women, dopamine drops very excessively, and that results in anxiety, anger. So there is like a chemical thing going on there whenever you're feeling that way when your milk is letting down. So just know that you're not alone in that, and if it becomes obviously like a huge issue, you need to go talk to your doctor about it, come up with a game plan, but I'd never heard anybody talk about that before, so I just wanted to throw that in there because I know that it's not super common, but it did happen to me, and just knowing that I wasn't alone in that made me feel better. So back to some more tips and tricks. Sorry, this video is kind of all over the place. I just had a lot of stuff I wanted to share with y'all. I didn't know how often you would have to be feeding. Breastfed babies need to be fed more often than formula-fed babies. The formula stays in their tummy longer and fills them up longer. Babies don't drink a whole lot, but they drink very often. The handout the doctor had given us before was that a newborn baby for the first 24 hours drinks the half an ounce of colostrum per feeding. So it's like barely any, but they need to be fed every 1 to 2 hours usually. With Mackenzie, for the most part, I did feed on demand. So if she started doing her hunger cues, then I would feed her. But I also did try to keep track of the time, and if it had been, more than 2 hours, I was trying to encourage her to go ahead and nurse. But the first 24 hours is barely anything, and then it slowly, gradually increases. So 2/3 of an ounce per feeding for 48 hours, and it just slowly increases. So they're not drinking a ton. They're not drinking very much at all, but they're drinking very often. So that's something that I didn't really know. I know people always say oh, you're going to be up feeding all the time, but it really was with Mackenzie sometimes every hour to 2 hours. This first couple months, especially the first couple weeks, did feel like I was just a milk machine, I was just always nursing. But it passes. They get to where they don't need to nurse as often. It's just a small stage in life, and now I look back on it and I miss that time with Mackenzie. You create a bond with your baby whenever you're breastfeeding, especially when they're counting on you and relying on you for their food and nutrients, and you're spending so much one-on-one time with them nursing. The other tips that I have is you need to drink a lot of water. If you don't drink a lot of water, you will become dehydrated, and you can't produce very much milk if you're dehydrated. Another thing is you need to eat often. I tried to always drink and eat a snack every time I nursed, unless it was in the middle of the night. There's also specific foods that can help increase milk production. There's also foods that can decrease it, but the ones that I used that could increase it was oatmeal. I've tried to eat at least one thing of oatmeal every day. Salmon, avocado, leafy greens, yogurt, eggs. I'm not huge on yogurt, but whenever I was breastfeeding Mackenzie, I did try to eat yogurt. Tea, they have different teas. This tea is the one that I like to use. I didn't do it daily with Mackenzie. I did it if I kind of noticed that my milk supply seemed to be a little bit on the low side. I do plan on using this right after my C-section, because I've heard that with C-sections, sometimes your milk doesn't come in as quickly or as much just because you're having a C-section. You didn't go into labor naturally. And there's also, you can make lactation cookies, you can make breastfeeding smoothies, all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of great ideas on Pinterest. I personally never did the cookies or the smoothies. My milk supply was pretty good throughout the whole time that I breastfed Mackenzie. Those last couple months, since I did breastfeed her for 14 months, those last like 3 or 4 months, my supply wasn't as good. But that's also, my period had come back at that point and it just wasn't as good. So I did start trying to do things to increase my milk supply. You also want to still limit caffeine and alcohol. So now getting into my breastfeeding must-haves. The first must-have is a nursing bra. These are the ones that pull down with a clasp. I have the Kindred Bravely ones. I love the Kindred Bravely ones and I will link them. I did a whole video on all the products that Kindred Bravely has that I like. So a nursing bra is a must-have. It has extra padding and the padding can come out so you can wash it easily. It's not very practical to use a regular bra and just try to like pull it down. It's going to be a huge hassle. These are a little bit more on the pricey side. Amazon has, I think, where you can get like 3 or 4 for not very expensive, so just shop around. To me, these were worth the money because they've lasted me a long time and I machine wash them and they've held up. Another thing is a comfy bra to sleep in. So this one isn't always super comfortable for me to sleep in because it is super supportive, so it's tight. So I have their sleep bra from Kindred Bravely, so it's real thin, but it still gives you some support and it's where you can put your breast pads in. So you definitely want some kind of support just because your boobs are going to be big, and if you don't want them like to get a bunch of stretch marks, and just to be more comfortable, you're going to want a little bit of support even when you're sleeping. So this is great. Or if you want to get like a nursing nightgown, I also have a couple of the Kindred Bravely nursing nightgowns, and that's enough support while I'm sleeping. Next thing is, this is new to me, but everybody says it's a must-have if you're going to breastfeed. So this is that hockey, I don't know how you pronounce it. So this you're supposed to put on the opposite boob whenever the baby's nursing, and it catches your letdown. So when the baby's nursing, your other boob is going to leak a lot, especially in the beginning. That's just how it works. Your boob gets like stimulated and thinks needs to let the milk out, even when it's not stimulated. If you haven't nursed or pumped recently, if it gets too full with milk, it'll start leaking on its own. So you're supposed to like suction this to your boob. You want to make sure it's on there really good, and it just catches that letdown. So then you can save this milk for your freezer supply or for bottles. It helps for making a big mess because I remember I had so much milk going everywhere, and it helps you prevent like wasting milk and build up your freezer supply. So I am going to give this a try this time. The next must-have is just to make your boobs feel better. Really helped me. It is this, I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm so bad at pronouncing names. Lanshun. This is the brand of my breast pump as well. So it's a 3-in-1 little like breast therapy pack. So, and it comes with this cover that goes over it. You can put it in the freezer. That's usually what I did. I just keep them in the freezer. Or you can also microwave them, not for very long. I think it's like 10 seconds. And it just helps so much. If you feel like you're getting a clogged duct, which is painful, applying heat helps. So if you microwave this and then just have it on. They come in a 2-pack, and I highly recommend these. I will link them. It made me so much more comfortable. Another must-have is nipple cream for whenever, those first few weeks, whenever you're going to be really sore. So I have a bunch of different ones. I have that I don't know how you say it. I have this Palmer's one, and then the Medela. And they make so many different ones. I didn't really use a whole lot of nipple cream with Mackenzie, but I do recommend getting some just to have on hand. If I end up feeling like I'm using some with this baby, I'm probably going to try to order one of the more organic ones. I was kind of concerned about Mackenzie eating this off of, like, because it's on your nipple, obviously it gets absorbed. So it kind of prevented me from using it as much. Not that there's anything wrong with any of these that I know of, but I do know that they make a lot of great organic ones. So I might look into that. Another must-have is the tea, which I already kind of touched on. This mother's milk tea is really good for you. It increases your milk supply. Another must-have is breast pads. So I had bought some of the disposable ones. So it's like a circle pad. It has a sticky part. You just stick it into your bra. And then whenever it gets wet with milk, then you throw it away and get a new one. So they have disposable ones. They have a bunch of different brands. And then I also have the Kindred Bravely cloth ones. These are super soft and comfortable. They go in the same way. And I just machine wash them in one of my little garment bags. So for me, I prefer the cloth ones. It is a hassle to have to wash them, but they're just much more comfortable to me. It's just a personal preference. The next thing that I recommend as a must-have are the nipple shields. So I have 2 different sizes. So it's just this little silicone piece and it just fits over your nipple. It has little holes in it. You can see that. It has little holes in it so the milk goes through there. I say this is a must-have because so many moms have said that it helped them with bleeding nipples and just hurting during those first few weeks. For me, I couldn't get Mackenzie to suck through the little silicone. I couldn't get it to work, but I am packing these with baby number 2 for the delivery, and I am going to try them again because so many people recommend them. So I did want to include that in the must-have. For me, it didn't work out, but I don't know, maybe I wasn't doing it right. I didn't have these whenever the lactation consultant was there. So I bought these whenever we had gotten home because I was in so much pain. So maybe I can get the lactation person to help look at it with me and see if I don't know how you could do it wrong, but am I doing it wrong or is it just not for me? But I would go ahead and get some of these just to have on hand. Another must-have is a boppy pillow or some kind of like breastfeeding pillow. They make one called like My Breast Friend that a lot of people recommend. I didn't use the boppy a ton with breastfeeding Mackenzie. This time I'm definitely bringing the boppy because I'm having a C-section and I will need some support and just some protection between baby and my like incision site and everything. So I do recommend that you have some sort of breastfeeding pillow. Another thing I wanted to touch on real quick is make sure that you're keeping track of how many dirty diapers baby has, how often you're nursing, how long you're nursing, just because the pediatrician will probably ask you that, and those are all things that help let them know if baby is getting enough milk, that you're producing enough milk. If you're not pumping right away or you don't pump at all, it can be hard to tell how much milk you're getting or how much milk the baby's getting. So just try to keep track of those things. Another thing is I had questions about, do you nurse the baby on both breasts per nursing session, or do you do one and then the other? For me, whenever I was in a lot of pain, I started doing one at a time. That way, so if she was really hurting my left boob, I knew my right one would get a little bit of a break. At the hospital, they had told me to nurse, 10 minutes on this one, then move over to the other one. But for me, I found that doing one per session helped give one boob a break, and I felt better. So with doing that though, you might have to pump a little bit out or try to nurse a little bit more often, just because the one that you don't use will become very large and it starts getting like hard whenever you haven't pumped or fed in a while. So just keep that in mind. Everybody's different though. You'll come up with your own routine and find what works for you. I hope that this video was helpful. I hope that it gave y'all some tips. Please let me know if you have any questions. I was super lost when I started my breastfeeding journey with Mackenzie. I'm so glad, so thankful that it worked out to where I could nurse her for 14 months. I just love and enjoy that time that I had with her and that special bond that we had. It means a lot to me, and I was very proud of myself for breastfeeding for that long because it is a big commitment. It is a big deal, especially if you are a working mama and you have to pump to have bottles for your baby while you're gone. And if you're having to pump at work, it is a lot of work. It's hard work, but it's so rewarding and so worth it in my opinion. I really hope that I'm able to breastfeed baby number 2. I am going to obviously give it my best shot again, but as I said earlier, anything can happen. Every baby, every mama, every pregnancy and delivery is different. I'm really hoping that like my hyperemesis and me having a C-section doesn't affect my trying to breastfeed this time. So I'm really hopeful that it all works out to where I can. But like I said before, there's no shame in having to supplement with formula or having to switch to formula. As long as you're taking care of your babies and feeding your babies, that's all you can do. You can only do your best. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe. I will be doing a pumping video as well, just because I had so much information to share with y'all. I didn't want to do it all in one video. So I will be doing a pumping tips and must-have and just going over a couple of things with pumping as well. Let me know in the comments if y'all have any breastfeeding must-haves that I didn't touch on or any questions. Thank you.